Assalamualaikum, my name is Arfat and welcome to a brand new video. In today's video, I have my top 5 favorite Christian books that I've read, and this is all time that I've read. Out of all the books that I've read so far, these 5 books are my current favorites. Now, obviously, as I read more books, this will change, but currently, these are my 5 favorite Christian books. Now, I will be talking a little bit about these books, so bear with me. This video could be slightly longer than usual, but anyway, the first, the number 5. Okay, number 1 being my most favorite, number 5 being, out of this category, my favorite also. But number 5, and I've chosen this book, by the way. Let me just introduce my thinking here. I've chosen the reason why these 5 books are my favorite is because I believe that these 5 books are really, really well written. They really impact the studies of the Christian subject, any Christian subject, academic subject, and also because the scholars that wrote these books are brilliant scholars, and their research, is just apart from the book being well written. They really impact and they impact the study of Christianity, and I also enjoy reading them. So there are several different factors. Now, all of these books here that I have today can be considered not a light read in a sense. That doesn't mean that I only prefer to read books that are so academically inclined or something like that. No, it just happens that these 5 books are my favorite, and they are not a light read. Some of these, out of these 5 books, I believe only 1 or 2 are directed towards non-specialists, okay, non-academic students of the Christian subject. But that is not to say that I myself is academically inclined. So you get what I'm trying to say here. So anyway, the number 5 one is When Christians Were Jews, okay, by Professor Paula Fredrickson. Fantastic book. This is definitely the best book from her that I've read, and I have all of her books except for one, but she wrote an article, and so she wrote an article in another book, but apart from that, I own all of her books. So this is my favorite from her, and she is also one of my favorite authors. Fantastically written. The prose is slightly funny at times, at least to me, humorous in a sense. And this book is not that long; it's about 200 pages or so, if you take away the footnotes and the notes and bibliography and things like that. But nevertheless, this is a fantastically written work. When Christians Were Jews, the first generation, the subtitle, the first generation, is to put it out there to the face of the general Christian audience, and that the followers of Jesus were Jews themselves. Okay, the followers of Jesus were Jews, and so there were no such thing as New Testament. Yeah, and the term Jewish Christians applies to them basically to mean that they were Jews, but they believe in Jesus, because there were Jews that do not believe in Jesus. Okay, like some of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Again, these are just 2 out of the many categories of Jews that we have in the 1st and 2nd century. Pretty much we do not know a lot about them. Okay? The only writings from a Pharisee that survive is from Paul. Okay, um, and so when Christians were Jews, they were Torah observant Christians. Jesus came and abrogated some of the law of Moses to make it easier for them, like the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath, for example. Even though in Mark actually could probably not be the words of Jesus. If you have the red letter Bible that I have in my shelf there, that portion is highlighted in red. But most of the time, if you really read it, it is actually um, a resolution or a conclusion by Mark, the author of the Gospel according to Mark. So I do not believe that that is actually exactly the words of Jesus, because it doesn't. It sounds like a commentary. Again, if you have undertaken an in-depth study of the gospel, you find that some of these narratives are actually commentaries of the gospel. Okay, and so also this is one of the reasons why we know that the gospel have undergone through many layers of editing, but that's besides the point. That is not the purpose of this video. So when Christians were Jews, this is a fantastic book. Definitely worth the read, and this is published by Yale University Press. Yeah. All right, this is number 4. Number 5, we have Christian history, and I've read a lot of Christian history books, and this is one. I think this is my favorite. Okay, and this is The First 1,000 Years by Robert Louis Wilken. Okay, again by Yale University Press. His chapter on Saint Augustine is really good. The chapter on Augustine, and it's just fantastic. This is written more towards the general audience, for those who want to have a complete overview, a brief overview of the first 1,000 years of the Christian history. This includes the Council of Nicaea and the subsequent council, the Christological Council, the Trinitarian Council, and so on and so forth. And this is, again, if there can only be one history of Christianity book for the general audience, I would recommend this one. There's nothing much to talk about this book. It goes through with you from the 1st century all the way to the millennium. It talks about Christian art. It talks about some of the church fathers. None of the topics in here are extensive. It talks about not only the Western Christianity, it talks about the Eastern Christianity as well. And so pretty much you get an all-rounder image or picture of what Christianity is. But the chapter on Augustine itself is worth the purchase. The chapter on Augustine, a fantastically written book. This is more focused on the socio-political history. Like a lot of Christian history books were written in with that topic in mind. But I think this author, and I have several other books from him as well, again, fantastic author and fantastic speaker as well. Anyway, nothing much for me to say here. Just that I completely recommend this book. Again, I enjoy reading works like this. Now, moving on, we have the text of the New Testament. Okay, a historical introduction to the early Christian writings. This is fantastic. Again, introductory work that covers the current New Testament that we have, okay, as well as the apocryphal books. The chapter on the Gospels, I think, is revolutionary. It talks about from a historical perspective, a comparative overview, and I think this is the best textbook out there. And I've read many textbooks. This is the best textbooks, and that's why this is the bestseller. And again, nothing much more for me to talk about here. The chapters on Paul, all of these books, all of the chapters in this book, they're very well written. And there are boxes in this book, which, like for example, boxes like this, very, very helpful. And I couldn't recommend this textbook. Now, I will do a comparison between Bart Ehrman's textbook and Raymond Brown's textbook when it comes to Introduction to the New Testament. But that is for a future video, inshallah. Now, we're down to the last two. The Text of the New Testament by the late Professor Bruce Metzger. Again, I enjoy reading his work, and I've read many of his work. And I will continue purchasing his work and reading his work. The thing about studying textual criticism and all these other fields is that it takes time for you to actually understand. You have to read and read again, because on the first reading you will not remember a lot of things, and so that is when the second reading, third reading, fourth reading, fifth reading, sixth reading comes in. And this is one of the great example. I've revisited many of the chapters in this book again and again and again, to memorize it, because some of these videos I don't actually have notes. In fact, 99% of my videos I do not have notes. I'm recalling from memory. And so before I make this sort of videos, I have to revisit them and read them again and again. And that is why I have a lot of these markers here to help me. But I always like to memorize what I'm reading, and so sometimes it would take me a long time to read a single book, because I would reread the chapter over and over again, so until I have a complete overview of the entire book. And so it's easy for me. When I'm speaking to someone, I can just recall it from memory. I do not need to refer to notes or anything like that. And that is how I've been learning since young. And that, I think, that is how a lot of Muslims learn as well, especially when it comes to the Quran. Now, my favorite book, and has been for a very long time, and I've read many other books, but so far none of them have been able to beat this book. And this book I've read 3 times, certain pages probably 7-10 times even. And this is the Orthodox Corruption of Scripture. No surprise. This is my favorite Christian book, but this is also my joint favorite when it comes to my entire book collection. I have one book, and this is joint favorite with Babur-un-Nama, the memoir of Emperor Babur. That is my favorite book, and this is it comes as a joint first. So anyway, I've made a lot of reviews for this book. There's no need for me to make any more reviews here. Again, I will continue making reviews of this book, because again, this book really was the reason why. Actually, I found the answer in this book. When I started learning about, when I started knowing from the Quran that the Bible has been changed, the New Testament in particular, I wanted to know what has been changed, and I found my answer in this book. And ever since then, obviously, I've found many more answers that is not in this book, But this book pretty much gave me 50 different answers, because there's about 50 examples in here. um, this book gave me the answer as to what has been changed in the New Testament in particular. Yeah, so anyway, ladies and gentlemen, those are my 5 favorite books, Christian books, I must say. um, and thanks for watching this video and continuing to watch this video. Hopefully it benefits all of us here, inshallah ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward us for all our effort, inshallah. Again, I'll see you on my next video. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.